Seinen, and I guess the first question that anybody asks is, why did you enter the Munga? And I think for me it was quite interesting. I don't even remember if it was a Twitter or a Facebook link that said something about a Munga. It was this race from Bloem to Cape Town, and I thought, hey, this is something different. I then sent an SMS to Gus, who I happen to be riding the race with now, and he was in the US at the time. And I sent him an SMS and I said Munga ? And I'm not sure whether he knew what it was, so then I wrote munga.com. He went onto it and he says, you know, is it going to be the Munga or the Desert Dash? Because every year we've done the Desert Dash for the last 4 years. So I think it was about 20 minutes it took me to sort of work this thing out. Munga, Desert Dash, Munga, Desert Dash. Do I want to go to Windhoek or do I want to ride down from Bloemfontein? I thought, oh, okay, hold on, we'll go to Bloem. And then he was back here a couple of days later, and we secured Gus secured the entry, which is fantastic. And yeah, so now we're knees deep in this thing, and yeah, it's all happening. I think the fact that there's so little to be known about it. Also the fact that you've got it's a first-time event, possibly lots of skepticism. Who, why, where, what route, where's the route, who knows the route, what can you do, what can't you do. And I think that those are the things that are all part of this challenge. You know, I refer to the Desert Dash, which goes across the Namib. You know exactly what happens, you know the stages, you know what time of the day the race starts. You've got a pretty good idea. I suppose the guys that did it the first time ever, they were also sort of going a little bit into the unknown. But this is sort of like very unique in the sense that it's an extremely long, and particularly if you want to do it in a decent time, you're going to have to go quite quickly, and a lot quicker than what some people might think it is. It's somewhat different to racing a freedom challenge, which is probably incredibly tough, incredibly hard, daunting, the terrain changes, etc. The Munga, you've got, in my mind, you've got a couple of, there's probably a dozen different routes that you could take, and how you slice and dice that route up, or how you slice and dice it according to your own strategy, just adds to the excitement and the sort of the entrepreneurship of this event, and just going into the unknown a little bit. It's quite adventurous to sort of just get on your bike and ride down to Cape Town from Bloemfontein. I'm sure there are people that have done it. There's guys that ride from the north to the south of Africa, and they just trundle along and enjoy the view. There's going to be a bit less viewing along the way, I'm sure. But it's, you know, it's just something that just gets you going. It's just something that, you know, brings up, sort of wells up inside you, and a willingness to go and do something that is really unheard of. I actually rode with a guy this morning that said, oh, he'd love to be able to do it, but he doesn't know whether he's got all the sort of the tools in his ammo box for this sort of an event. And I don't think, if you complicate it too much, and you're going to confuse yourself. And I think it's a number of small components, and I'm not by any stretch of the imagination am I a brilliant cyclist, or you know, I've done a couple of desert crossings, I've done a couple of particularly long rides. You know, I've ridden the Cape Epic 4 times. I'm the worst single tracker in the world. I hate going downhill, and my mates constantly rip me off. I'll keep my bike in lockout, but that's just the way I am. But I think that if you can handle riding on your own for a long time, and you can entertain yourself in your mind, then that's your first trick. I think the second trick is if you know how to manage your nutrition, and if you know when to eat, how much to eat, how far in, how far out, whatever. If you've got that and you've got it planned, you've probably done a large chunk of that already. So the head, and then what you're eating. And for me, the single most important aspect is who you're riding this thing with. We've seen lots of stage races around the world, and everybody says always you choose your partner. But trust me, there's been lots of tears. And I'm very grateful that in all the races that I've done where I've had partners, whether it's a 2-man or a 4-man team, I've been particularly fortunate. I've never had an argument, and I think it's got a certain amount to do with my sense of humor. A lot of water off a duck's back, and you've got to take things very lightly. Your partner's going to have a particularly bad time, and that's where you've got to step up to the plate, and you're going to have a bad time, and he's got to step up to the plate, or she's got to step up to the plate. And just to sort of humor the whole thing, because yes, I'm sure that you're going to go through some incredibly dark patches, not just at night, but there's going to be some tough times. You know, the beginning of December is the hottest time of the year in that part of the world, and I wouldn't hesitate to say that temperatures can roll from 35 closer to 40 sometimes at that time of the year. The wind is not going to be in your favor at that time of the year either. In actual fact, the wind will be particularly low, and you know, it's just the whole unknown thing. And yeah, I would say go there with a sense of humor. Know that you can ride for a long time on your own, at times having to go to the limit, having the right nutrition, and then and your partner. There's not a lot of trickery in this sort of thing. There's a certain amount of luck, because you've got bike maintenance and any sort of little bit of admin can happen. But if you've prepared yourself with that in mind, then I think that your bike is the least of the issues. I say that really sort of hesitantly, but it should be the least of your issues. The big trick is that your legs can turn for 15, 18 hours, maybe in a row, continuously. Yeah, if you had to start from the 1st of July, well, we only decided to do this thing 2 weeks ago. And I've already sort of gone knees deep into training program. Had a particularly good week last week. Hope to have another good week. You've got to have a fairly decent base of good miles. They don't have to be fast. They don't have to be hard. You just got to put some time in the legs. And then you go through your you go through your cycles of mega miles or lower miles, or high power, low power, whatever it is. Also got intermittent races set up. We're doing the Trans-Baviance, then we're doing the double century, then we've got a couple of rides. Got a couple of long rides planned. One is to ride from Maatjiesfontein, Laingsburg sort of area, back down to Cape Town. Another one is to ride from Bloem towards Cape Town direction, maybe again just ride for a day or day and a half, or whatever, however we slice and dice it. But the idea is to sort of do a couple of route recce's, 6-7 weeks apart, leading up to the race, which is what, 24-25 weeks away. But yeah, also just to always remember that we're not professional cyclists. We're just amateur guys. We run businesses. Gus runs an incredibly large corporation. I run an incredibly small corporation, and yeah, we've got our businesses to run, and I think that we also realise that we've got our families. I've got children, our wives. We've got real things to consider as well, and I wouldn't hesitate saying that someone that comes up with a particularly well thought out strategy, top riders, some pro riders, in the correct period of their season, I think they would find this an incredibly attractive race to do, because I've seen it with guys that have gone and done the epic other bike races just generally around the world, and they've done it with limited miles in their legs, but they've done it with a lot of science in their training. They watch their heart rate periodization, their power periodization, all that sort of stuff. You can get away with a lot less then what you might think initially is, well, I can't do that amount of miles. You'd be surprised what you can actually do. You can turn yourself inside out to get to Cape Town.